Kaprizov going into his final year, Eichel going into his final year, Kyle Connor going into his final year, are all of these guys connected to Connor McDavid? Are they waiting for McDavid to kind of set the bar? Not that they're going to reach it, but if Kaprizov turned down $16 million, maybe he will. Maybe he can. Like, CJ, how does McDavid in that contract negotiation, if it's going to happen or if it's not going to happen, affect the other guys I just named?
You know, it's funny. It depends who you ask on this one, and I've kind of kicked around on this idea with a lot of the people that represent the players you just mentioned. And, you know, some basically say, look, my guy knows Connor McDavid's in a class of his own, even as great as my player is. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with ours. Ours is just about, you know, X, Y, or Z. But then, you know, I do think that there is an element of, you know, the bar is being reset here. You know, if Kaprizov gets more than $16 million, it's possible he's actually going to be paid higher than Connor McDavid on his next contract. I mean, I'm obviously getting way ahead of myself, but, you know, I think if McDavid ends up staying in Edmonton, it's going to be hard for him to you know, really reset the bar, because, you know, part of what's held that up, of course, is his thoughts about what the team will need to do to stay competitive. And part of that will be needing money and flexibility to sign other players and to make trades and to keep improving the team around him to a degree that I don't know that he could, you know, go way above that mark. So we are at this interesting moment in time. You know, I don't expect Eichel, for example, to leave Vegas, you know, as much as that hasn't produced a deal just yet. I think that's one of those ones where both sides are pretty comfortable. You know, Dregs has reported about, you know, Kyle Connor and the Jets, you know, being, you know, pretty well down the road, at least in having conversations and having a lot of things in common, even though they haven't got all the details lined up. But Kaprizov is a bit of an X factor, and, you know, I don't know how that's going to shake out there. I don't know if he really wants to leave Minnesota. I mean, there's a lot of misinformation flying around about him, but he could end up getting paid more than Connor McDavid. I think that's, you know, not because he's a better player, but maybe just the circumstances bounce in his favor that way.
Yeah, and some believe that, look, ultimately the deal that Kaprizov turned down, 8 years at $128 million, is the deal that he likely will end up accepting. You know, we'll see how it plays out. Individually, each one of these negotiations is tricky business. As CJ mentioned, the feeling is that Eichel would like to stay in Vegas. Kelly McCrimmon is excellent at this kind of stuff and moving the chairs and making sure that the pieces are, but he's not going to make that level of money. Kyle Connor is an interesting one. Sure, there's a mutual appetite for him to stay, but I think that he's pushing hard on what the structure of that contract looks like. It'll be a Marner type of deal that Marner signed with Vegas in terms of the AAV. Winnipeg they can't afford to give out the big signing bonus money. And so what if the player goes, nah, you know what, I'm okay with the AAV, but I'm digging in. I want that front-loaded money, and maybe that's part of the reason why it's taken
And
this
what
long.
if Kaprizov gets it, Panarin gets it, Eichel gets it?
Hard.
Like, if you're in that category, you're like, well, why am I forfeiting
Well,
that?
there's guys way further down the list. Like in Toronto, they're handing fourth liners get bonus money on July 1st.
This is the thing, though. You said can't afford, or there's a difference, or won't.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's a very wealthy organization, that
Well,
ownership
the guy who
group.
owns it's the richest guy in the country, I
But
believe.
they don't.
I could be wrong
Listen,
on
they have
that,
a different
but-
philosophy. There's a difference between can't and won't, because
Right.
I think that they.
Language is important.
Well, I think they can afford it, but there's a difference between won't and
All right.
can't. That
I
would
got
be
you.
my add to that, but maybe I'm wrong.